the first and only trial in U.S. history against an administration for violating the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 is starting tomorrow, on Monday, in San Francisco, in front of Judge Breyer, the brother of a former United States Supreme Court justice. This is about Donald Trump's takeover in June of the federalization of the National Guard in California to try to embarrass Gavin Newsom, the governor there, to scare the crap out of Los Angelinos and people in California, to try to debase and degrade the Democratic Party. The issue of whether Donald Trump had the right to federalize the National Guard has already been decided in his favor by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which found that Judge Breyer, in his injunction to stop federalization, was wrong. Okay, but that's not the only issue. The California smartly, through Rob Bonta, its attorney general, raised the issue of whether the Posse Comitatus Act had been violated because Donald Trump is using the U.S. military on U.S. soil for domestic law enforcement purposes, arresting people. That he cannot do unless there's an insurrection, and nothing about the protests in California rise to the level of insurrection. That was the remaining issue, Posse Comitatus Act. Now, while Judge Breyer didn't want to enter a preliminary injunction, he wanted a trial. And now we got a 3-day trial starting tomorrow. First of its kind in U.S. history, with broad implications. This is so important of an issue that we here on Legal AF are going to cover this in a number of ways as I update you as when the trial starts. First of all, Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News, who's joined Legal AF as a regular contributor, is literally listening to every minute, every hour of the trial. And he's going to be reporting, hopefully, I think daily, at the end of the day, of a summary of what happened during the trial. I'll be trying to do the same thing. That's one. Secondly, Rob Bonta, the Attorney General for California, is going to be joining me for an interview. It's scheduled for Monday night. I hope to get it up on Tuesday, along with the president of the Association of Attorneys General, about how they are opposing the Trump administration from the state level. And they are the leaders right now. They are the front line. They are the first responders to our democracy being on fire. It's the governors and it's the attorneys general. Now, you're here on Legal AF. I'm going to go further. I'm going to get into what this 3-day trial is about, but I need your help. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. Get us over the top in terms of subscriber base. The bigger we are, the more your voice is heard. And it signals to us that you want more content, more contributors, more videos every day at the intersection of law, politics, and the defense of our democracy. Okay, let's back it up. June, Donald Trump sends in the Marines, the troops, literally, and tries to federalize the National Guard, which is a state National Guard, by giving an instruction to the commandant of the National Guard in California and says, you're now working under us. Now, Breyer held a hearing, there was briefing, and he issued a preliminary injunction. He found that Donald Trump violated the 10th Amendment, which reserves to the states all powers not reposed in the federal government, and found that what he did was unconstitutional, that there were no proper grounds. There's 2 or 3 grounds you need in order to establish the right to federalize. We, in our federalist system, don't like presidents federalizing state employees, state forces for their purposes. It strikes at the heart of federalism and how we put this country together with the Constitution and the bargains that were made and the trade-offs that were made between state power and federal power. And it was clear to senior status Judge Breyer, comes from a very smart family. His brother, Stephen Breyer, used to be on the United States Supreme Court before he retired. So Breyer rules, Ninth Circuit, 2 Republican-appointed judges, 1 Biden-appointed judge, 3-0. They rule against Breyer, finding that under the terms of the act that deals with the National Guard, the federalization of the National Guard, the commandeering statutes, that Donald Trump properly made out a record that he needed in order to execute the laws, which is the job of the executive branch. He needed the assistance of state law enforcement, state military, if you will, in order to execute, because his regular forces, that's the term that's used in the statute, weren't enough. Okay. But Breyer had not ruled on the Posse Comitatus Act and whether Donald Trump had violated it. He wanted more evidence. He wanted more proof. And so that was not up on appeal. And so even though a lot of the reporting at the time was Breyer blocked, National Guard can be federalized by Trump, there was an extra piece there. There was a loose thread that was not resolved by the appeal, nor blocked by the appeal about Posse Comitatus. Because the judge said, I'm not going to rule on Posse Comitatus until I get more evidence. He granted the right for discovery to California. They developed more evidence. They got evidence. They got evidence of the military arresting people on domestic soil, which they're not supposed to do, right? There were pictures of actually a veteran in handcuffs, handcuffed by the Marines out in front of a federal building. That's a Posse Comitatus Act violation. And that's what the judge wanted to get to the bottom of before he ruled. So he set a 3-day hearing. He said it back in June, but now it's here. The first ever trial involving an administration's violations of the Posse Comitatus Act, which came out of our Civil War post-Reconstruction period, right after the Civil War, because the states were scared. Let's be frank, after the Civil War. Let's do a little bit of a history lesson. I'll take a page out of our resident historians, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wilentz, for a moment, right? Popok on history. Not drunk history, just history. We come out of the Civil War, where literally brothers are fighting against each other as we know, over slavery and Lincoln's powers to quell this uprising and put the country back together again, but in the form of the Union. Right? Not the form of the Confederacy. And so after he defeated the Confederacy with much personal sacrifice and a great toll of human loss and all of that, but over a very good cause, right? We're not going to have slavery in the United States any longer. We're going to recognize freed Black Americans as citizens. I mean, not immediately, but over time. He's got to get these Confederate states back in line and back joining the Union. And they're scared about having Union federal troops, arresting them on the streets for protest or domestic soil issues. And so he promises them, and an act is passed to tell the southern states, law enforcement's law enforcement. Federal troops, like what just defeated you, are not going to be arresting you for domestic civil disobedience and other acts. Okay? We're not going to do it that way. We're not going to enforce certain laws, domestic laws, by use of troops. And that's the genesis of Posse Comitatus Act. So now fast forward, in all this time since the Civil War, we've never had a president that touched the third rail and try to trigger the Posse Comitatus Act. Donald Trump's already done it not once but twice. That's why this precedent-setting case is so important, because he's already threatening to send federal troops into foreign countries like Mexico and Colombia and Venezuela in order to arrest and break up drug cartels on domestic soil without the permission of those countries. Okay, so which, depending upon which side of the border it's on, could also be, we've gone beyond drug interdiction, and now we're into arresting and assassinating people on foreign soil. He could be violating the Posse Comitatus Act again. So this case is going to be the first case in the book. When they teach in law schools, has there ever been a case where the Posse Comitatus Act was alleged to have been violated? And was there a trial? Yes. August 11th through 14th in San Francisco in front of Senior Judge Breyer. Now, what do I think is going to happen? Having read the briefs, I think that California is going to put on a very strong case for actual evidence of the act being violated, and that the insurrection exception to the act does not apply. Donald Trump's going to argue every time we say domestic soil arrests that are violative of the act, Donald Trump's going to say insurrection. And he loves insurrections. He loves to say insurrections are present when they're not. He loves to ignore insurrections when they occur. He lets everybody out of jail who participated in his organized insurrection. You know, he's got a thing. He's got a lot of things. He's got a lot of tells. Sex traffickers and predators he's in love with. Honestly, they're at the White House all the time. He's thinking about pardoning them all the time. And he's got a thing for insurrection. And so he said, oh, I could claim it was an insurrection. Look, as Judge Breyer said in prior orders, throwing a rock or two or a mango, it was literally a mango, at troops is not the level of armed insurrection required to invoke this. Donald Trump didn't think the attack on the Capitol by 2,000 people, led by paramilitary troops like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and former military militia and police officers, in which they brought weapons and picked up weapons along the way and homemade weapons, attacking the police. They did not, MAGA does not think, and Trump does not think that's an insurrection, and argued that at the United States Supreme Court, which is going to make for very interesting arguments by John Sauer, who used to be Donald Trump's criminal defense appeals lawyer, who argued there was no insurrection during the immunity case, and in the ballot, the Colorado ballot case that went to the United States Supreme Court, where some states tried to bar and ban Donald Trump from the ballot as participating in an insurrection. They argued no insurrection. Well, if that's not an insurrection, how is some mango throwing and some spitting going on in California for a short amount of time? How is that an armed insurrection? So John Sauer, who argued the case for Donald Trump against insurrection, is going to have a hard time, I think, with speaking with forked tongue at the United States Supreme Court when this case inevitably gets there, to say this is an insurrection. Watch for that. I will. So Breyer, 3-day bench trial. It's going to be it's literally the fight between Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump. It's Newsom versus Trump, literally as the name of the case, but broader implications. I think after Breyer hears the evidence about the violations, that's what he's focused on, actual violations of the Posse Comitatus Act. I think, and he listens to the arguments, which are really legal arguments by Trump's team about this is an insurrection. If somebody's smart, and they are, with Rob Bonta, the Attorney General for California, they're going to say that's not how they portrayed the Capitol attack, and call them out right there and start making the record right there. I think Breyer, my prediction based on my 35 years experience trying federal cases in front of judges like Breyer. I've tried cases in San Francisco, not just in front of Breyer, is that he's going to rule for California. He's going to find at 1, 2, 3 violations of the Posse Comitatus Act. And then that's going to go up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It goes back, I believe, to this original 3-judge panel, which is not great for California, if I'm right about that. It's going to be back to Bennett, Miller, and Sung, which is not great. Sung is a Biden appointee. She barely said a word during the last appeal and appellate argument. If I'm wrong and it gets reassigned to a new 3-judge panel, because it's not technically a related case, but I think it goes right back to them. If it gets assigned to another 3-judge panel, that's better. So I'll have to see the panel assignment before I can speculate as to what and give you my commentary about what's going to happen at the 9th. If it's that 3-judge panel, they could reject Breyer, and then California is going to have to take an emergency appeal up to an appeal up to the United States Supreme Court. One way or the other, whether it's California's the winner or Trump's the winner, it's going to get to the Supremes. It's not going to get there on an emergency docket in August or September. It's going to be in October when the new term starts, first Monday in October. Sometime in first quarter of 2020, last quarter 2025, first quarter 2026, we're going to see that oral argument on full briefing. But I did not want, because we haven't talked about it in a while, I did not want our audience to lose sight of the historic nature and impact of this case. And it's now on the slender shoulders of Senior Judge Charles Breyer. I'll follow it. We're following it, as I said, every day here on Legal AF. There'll be an episode, a hot take about it. I'm trying to get Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News, our new contributor, to do it with me or do it for me. If he can't do it for us, I'll do it for us because he's covering the trial every hour, every day. That's one of his competitive advantages, kind of inside the courtroom. And then remember, I'm going to have Rob Bonta, the California Attorney General, joining me, hopefully for an interview on Monday night. We'll put up on Tuesday, and we'll talk about this particular case. We're trying to bring the newsmakers that matter to you, the lawyers that are in the courtroom, entities like Democracy Forward and the ACLU, bring them on here on a regular basis. We've got two major playlists I want to direct you to on this YouTube channel. Democracy Forward has a playlist where we talk about all of their cases, and they've got over 80 cases against the Trump administration and about 20 injunctions. And Adam Klasfeld's All Rise News. Playlists you're not going to want to miss, only on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. Till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.